empathy goes a long way with like friendships. That's why I feel like I have so many friends that I have deep relationships with like after school because it's like I talk to other people. And it's like, how many friends do you have? And they'll be like one or two.
On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat down among ourselves to discuss the top 3 life skills that a person can possess. Be sure to give us your take in the comments. But until then, let's see what we come up with.
Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned Business of the Week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is Know Your Direction Marketing by Sydney Carey. Know Your Direction Marketing specializes in natural health and nutrition, skincare, cosmetics, and home care products. If you're interested in seeing what they have to offer, give their Facebook page a follow.
So the question we have for today, what are the 3 most valuable life skills a person can possess? Comment below, let us know your opinion. We also have timestamps in the description below, as always. Be sure to check them out.
Cool. So there's 3 skills that I thought about, and to kind of offer an explanation for anyone watching this, these are not restricted to hard or soft skills. So I have a mixture of both. And the first one I have is introspection. The second one is empathy, and the third one is cooking. And I can offer a brief explanation on why I think each of these are valuable life skills, or 3 of the most valuable life skills you can possess. So with introspection, I feel like that's the biggest one because with that, it allows you to recognize areas for change and growth, and also have like the self-awareness to acknowledge when you're wrong. And that in itself, if you don't have that, it severely limits like your potential in life. And then empathy, because I feel like when it comes to people, specifically like in my line of work in the software industry, so we focus on intelligence, and there's like stereotypically most people would say that people in the software industry, they lack those kind of people skills. You picture like a geek over a keyboard coding, and he can't like relay information to people. So it's just like with that in mind, I feel like if you have intelligence and empathy, it'll get you a lot further because people skills, they'll unlock doors that, excuse me, people skills will get you places that like you just your raw intelligence won't, just because of networking and those kind of abilities. And I really started to work on empathy and emotional intelligence a few years ago, and most of this was actually driven by the relationships that I had with women in particular. And as a direct benefit of that, it increased like the amount of empathy. So I try to apply it to like my day-to-day life. And the third one I have is cooking, because it knocks off like the fact that you having to be dependent on anybody. And then you think about how most people waste money is, okay, you're going to Starbucks getting a $5 latte, or you're going getting bullshit from McDonald's or something like that. Versus if you buy yourself, like I do, then you can cook in bulk, or I guess just a plain benefit. I feel like it's cheaper. Like when you buy stuff like the raw materials and actually cook the stuff for yourself, and then you also have more control over it. But I really think that for the main reason of you have the independence from other people, because like I've had guy friends, for example, they'll get in a relationship with the girl and she does X, Y, and Z, like the domestic stuff, and the relationship isn't working, but because she does that, she cleans, she cooks and stuff like that, they'll hold on to it a little bit longer. So it ends up hurting both of them a little bit longer. So it's just like if you have the skills that allow you to be independent like that, like I said, cooking was the primary one out of the like the domestics that I thought of. But if you can do stuff like that, you don't have that problem because you don't need anybody. I'm not saying that you can't depend on someone in areas where you do, but it's not like an absolute necessity. Like you won't be able to do for yourself without an individual.
For sure. It's funny you say empathy because like in the customer service field, that's like the one thing they always push. And I've
Hmm.
just came to the conclusion that I'm not an empathetic person because a lot of the stuff that people complain about, like when you're in the field of customer service at any level, it's like self-righteousness, man. And it's like when you can detect that, it's so hard to be empathetic because it's like, why should I care about your privilege? Why should I be empathetic towards your privilege? But like in your field, as far as like tech, I think, like you said, that is super important. Um,
Real quick, you said on empathy. I want to ask you something about that because you had mentioned like the self-righteous white customers that pissed you off last week. And
mhm.
so with empathy is, so with what you do, I know that you work at ADP. What, and you do calls with customers pretty frequently. So what exactly is your experience with having to be empathetic with them?
um, so a lot of times in the customer service field. a lot of escalations, which is a term we use for like clients who call in and want to speak to managers. And typically we don't ever transfer them to managers. I know a lot of us within the field are well, you know, level-headed enough to be able to take these clients on our own without having to get a manager involved. So a lot of times, a lot of our empathy or escalation calls comes from negligence, where they put in a request for something to be done and it hasn't been done in a timely manner. A lot of times what will happen is these requests will be done or will be submitted by a client within 48 hours before this call. But we always tell clients they could take up to 5 business days. So they'll call in, you know, yelling, saying we spend way too much money. Like, we're in a contract. You're not in a contract. You're spending too much money. You're not spending a lot of money. It's $49.99 plus, you know, $1 or $2 per every employee added on. And then on top of that, they like to complain about our hold times. Our hold times are no longer than 5 minutes on a busy day. So compared to our counterparts within like payroll that have hold times up to like an hour and a half, you have it very easy. So for me, it's knowing everything that I know, because I worked in both payroll and I worked with time management. Like, it's hard for me to be empathetic because these clients have payroll expectations, or they have payroll, you know, how can I say this? They're placing the expectations on us that they have payroll as far as what they experience, when that's not your experience with us. We're a completely different entity within ADP itself. So I have a hard time taking the blame for what you experience with someone else. Like, it'd be different if this was, you know, we do take some of the clients on for our own, but it'd be different if you gave me this request and I fumbled it. Then I'd have a reason to be empathetic. But knowing what I know and knowing the inner workings of our department, like, it's really just hard for me to be empathetic, because a lot of the stuff is just, it's so minor. Like, it's people making a big deal about like $130. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, like, you're going to lose money. Like, my dad and I, we talk about stocks, we talk about Forex all the time, and losing money is part of the game. But the simple fact that that's your $130 or your $50, like, you have that attachment to it. And it's like, you have to, for me, and it's funny that we say that, because for me, going into my 3 skills, like, I have my number one skill, no matter, and it's not very direct, but your number one skill you can have in life or possess is your purpose. Number 1. Number 2 is emotional intelligence. And reason why I'm bringing it up, emotional intelligence, because part of emotional intelligence is the ability to detach from any situation in life, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a job that's not, you know, putting you in the best situation to provide for your family or yourself. And I think that's so key, because I've experienced it myself, to where I've stayed at a job longer than I should have. Numerous times. I've stayed in a relationship longer than I could have. And I realized that as I found my purpose, my emotional intelligence increased. I knew what I wanted, and I knew I wasn't going to accept anything less on the way to getting what I wanted. And then the last thing is time management. I think time management is so important today, because in a time frame where everybody's working from home, or everything's done virtually, there's not a lot of, you know, physical interaction, or how can I say, face-to-face interaction with people. Everything's done on like a scheduled basis now. So you no longer have that ability to, you know, walk up to your manager, or walk up to your director, or walk up to your coworker while y'all all in one space and say what you need to say, or ask what you need to ask within, you know, 2 minutes. Now you got to put time on their schedule. Now you got to, you know, IM them, or now you got to send them an email and wait for their response. So one thing that I implemented, that I actually got from this YouTube video I watched last year around the May time frame. I can't remember his name. I think it's like Matthew Encina. He's a prominent YouTuber. He has really nice aesthetics, which is the reason why I was attracted to his videos. But he has like this 90-20 rule, where he will work without any distractions for 90 minutes. And then he'll give his brain 20 minutes to rest, but that's just long enough to not go into a resting state, but just enough to, you know, decompress and then go back into that next 90 minutes. So in the field of like, whether it be customer service or me, like, I'm transitioning to spending a lot more of my time doing day trading. All of those are super important, because in the field of Forex, we see a lot of people don't have the emotional intelligence that really messes with their psychology. You'll see a lot of people that will over leverage their accounts. You'll see a lot of people risk more than they can afford to lose. And all of that stuff comes down to psychology. And psychology is, you know, really just another, I guess you could say, branch on the tree of emotional intelligence. I think when you can learn to, you know, curb your anxiety, when you can learn to curb your greed, everything will align as it's supposed to in your life. And you'll truly be able to bear the fruits of your labor. And then time management ties perfectly into that, because you will get trader's block, which I equate to like writer's block, to where you'll just be looking or doing so much to where something doesn't make sense. And you'll take like 2 hours away and you'll come back in and be like, damn, how could I not identify that? Where, so if you kind of like give yourself structure, then you'll see structure with your time, you'll see, you know, things blossom the way they're supposed to be and the way they're intended to. Same thing in customer service as well. When you set that structure to where you're, you know, dedicating time to emails, dedicating time to clients, dedicating time to like off the phone work, everything just flows so much more smoother than you trying to juggle all of it, you know, at once.
So you said purpose was the most important one for what? See, okay, so there was a priority ranking.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find your purpose?
I think I found my purpose the way a lot of young parents do. I found myself going through the motions. I come from like a you know, decent, you know, as far as like when it comes to income, I come from a decent family. So my parents have done what they had to do to where I don't necessarily have to struggle, but I found myself struggling at my own negligence, my own, like at my own expense. So what I did was I just stopped truly feeling sorry for myself, man. I kind of just said, if there's going to be change that occurs in my life, then I have to seek the change. I can't expect for it to just come across my desk one day. So I like started picking up, you know, I know today, like I'm not as big on them as I used to be, but I started picking up self-help books. I used to read them. It didn't do anything for me until I actually started dissecting what I was reading. And, you know, critical thinking was one of the soft skills that I wanted to say, but I chose not to. But I started thinking more critically about what it was I was reading, and I started implementing pieces of it. And as I implemented more pieces, there just became a point to where everything clicked. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I found, you know, day trading was something that like a lot of people attempt to do and they fail at. But it was something that I failed at, and I failed at, and I failed at until I finally got successful at it. And along the way, I started mentoring like other younger traders in our little group. And I realized that I had such a knack for teaching somebody the basics at a more advanced level than a lot of people can. Like you go learn your and I think Josh can relate to this as well through ABA, but a lot of what we did with ABA was super simple stuff, but we had to be so creative with how we taught it to where the kid, like it was almost tailored for every kid. Like we couldn't do one lesson the same way with different kids. Like it had to be almost tailored for them. And it was like, once I realized that I had a knack for teaching people effortlessly, because my mind, I think over my 26 years, like I've become such an expansive thinker. Like I realized that that's what I had to do. That's where I got my dopamine hit from. It wasn't, you know, getting paychecks or, you know, having successful trades or, you know, thinking about going to law school or stuff like that. Like I got my biggest thrill out of life by teaching people something that they thought was impossible in less than an hour. So reason why I say purpose is, although I have not fulfilled my purpose, I'm on the track to fulfill it, because I've identified what it is that I'm really good at, and I'm putting all the pieces together to where I could do it independently, or if need be, acquire the necessary, you know, educations or, you know, licensing to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. That's dope. So you're saying that the purpose was, I guess, in kind of like what you were saying previously about mentoring eventually?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Because you never like directly said it, but I had to put the lines together and deduce it.
Of course. Yeah, it's my fault. I should have said it but I know we've had that conversation before. So, just for I guess the new listeners or people that didn't catch it, mentoring is what I feel like, my purpose is what I get excited about. And it doesn't feel taxing at all.
What was your 3 again?
In a ranked order, purpose, emotional intelligence, and then time management.
Okay. Yeah, I know Brian said empathy. Does empathy hold more value to other people than themselves?
No, I think it's more important for the person to be empathetic, because empathy really, from my personal opinion, it displays selflessness. I'm kind of a selfish person. I'm not as selfish as I used to be, but I think empathy and the ability to display it at such a high, I guess you could say, success rate to where you're not constantly clashing with yourself, I think it's a perfect depiction of selflessness.
Do you need selflessness to be successful though?
Depends on what you want to do.
It sure helps.
It does. Like I would say, I think it plays a part. I think I'll say this: you can get where you want to get in life without empathy, but remaining at the top of your game, or I'm sorry, you can get where you want to get in life without selflessness, but to remain at the top, it's going to have to eventually be a skill that you learn. Because if you think about Cloud9, for example, you can think about any job that we had. When we've had managers that we can't reason with, you want to leave. One thing that ADP does so well is it has really high retention rates, because they put people in like leadership roles that have that empathy to where, hey, yeah, you might not be making $20 an hour, you might be $2 shy of that, but we have the melting pot that has been curated for the employee to feel like he's valued. Let's be honest, like nobody wants to be answering 20 calls a day, hearing people bitch at them, complain to them about simple stuff. But because the culture is so selfless to where they constantly try and put the client above the associate that is answering the call, like this is saying like me putting the client above myself per se, or my colleagues doing the same, like because they teach that, and because essentially the managers put us above themselves at times as well, like they have that high retention rate. And not even just retention rate with employees, but they have high retention rate with clients as well.
Okay.
Did you ask because you didn't think it was possible?
No, I was just asking. Well, I didn't think it was possible to be successful without empathy.
Yes, that, and then you had asked prior to that. Well, this is a either or type of question where you would ask, does empathy help the person who's actually exercising, or the beneficiary, the recipient?
I don't know. It's actually a question I just came up with while you was talking, so I actually was curious. And then, if it did benefit the person, is that actually more beneficial to the actual circumstance?
I think it benefits the person who's exercising it more, because it allows you to take more of an active role in how things play out. Let's say you and I have a misunderstanding. So I don't know, I'm ignorant of your level of empathy. And it could have been because you had a bad day or some other circumstance that was internal to you, unknown, unbeknownst to myself. And so with that in mind, I can approach the situation a little differently. I could just take it as, okay, well, this is it, like cutting my boy Josh off, that's it. Or I could take the time to actually think and say, okay, well, maybe something else is going on, and kind of like delve into it and have a conversation to talk about that. But without empathy, you're less likely to do things like that and take the initiative. And ultimately that could affect like your interpersonal relationships. It could affect like job opportunities. It could affect just about anything, but more so like with people.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Like provides opportunity.
I got you. I was just thinking about it as a need basis, so that's why I asked if you needed it to be successful or not. So that was
a different question.
I know. That's where I was going to with it though. That's what I was talking about. But I got you. But my 3 is kind of similar to Des. Really, is emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and then time management. And emotional intelligence is valuable because if you have the ability to understand and manage your emotions while growing up, you'll be able to move more effectively from past relationships, like you said, you'll be more understanding of other people's emotions and decisions, and you'll be more socially aware. And having emotional intelligence is a key part in knowing who you are. And I know I didn't have the emotional intelligence growing up to understand other people's emotions, which caused me to make decisions based on emotion instead of taking the time to actually understand people's emotions and my own. So that's really why I say growing up as a person growing up growing up with that emotional intelligence is can be valuable, especially as a leader, because I feel a lot of good leaders have the emotional intelligence. And then second, critical thinking skills are valuable because having the ability to think critically will help with solving problems. And without the ability to solve problems and think critically, you can find yourself stuck in the same place. And there's a lot of people who don't have that ability to think critically, especially when they get together. That's why there's people who don't have like the debt, who are like stuck in debt or stuck in the same place, like stuck in the same job, like Des said, because they don't know how to solve the problems that got them in there in the first place. So that's really why I say critically thinking. And a lot of times growing up as kids, you're like so sheltered and are overprotected, and that ends up hindering the kid from being able to critically think. And you'll have the kids that aren't sheltered as much, and their parents don't let them do whatever. And when those kids make a mistake, instead of teaching them, they lecture them on what they should know and actually without actually being taught it. So that's why I really say that. And I know I was able to think critically as I grew up, because as the last kid born, I was left alone more, and seeing everything around me grow up, like seeing around me growing up, I was able to analyze everything and process the good and the bad and think critically from the experience that I've come in contact with, and then just go from there. So critical thinking skills, I would say right there is definitely valuable. And then my last one is just time management skills. And time management skills are valuable because it's not how much time you have, is basically what you do with the time. And having good time management skills can help you not only accomplish more things, but it can really open up the doors for like other things too, because you have such good time management skills.
So this was also ranked in order too for you, right?
No,
No.
it was just
Okay, because
I didn't have order.
how did you develop your emotional intelligence? Because what I was saying from my experience was it was driven through interactions with, like I said, with women, and it evolved over time. So like earlier, I didn't have the emotional intelligence. I guess I relate that one to empathy. So it may have been something that I had a rough time with early, but as I progressed and got older, it wasn't always somebody saying, "Hey, Brian, you need to do this." It was more so raising yourself up to meet a certain requirement that you have for yourself. So it's like, okay, well, if you see somebody as this important, then you'll act in line with that. So that's what my experience was like. And so through doing that in repetition, I started to realize more and more. And then I realized like empathy goes a long way with like friendships. That's why I feel like I have so many friends that I have deep relationships with like after school, because it's like I talk to other people, it's like, how many friends do you have? And they'll be like, one or two. It's like, damn, like you really, that's just so strange to me. Like a lot of people are like that. Like they have really like surface level friendships with other people, whereas I don't see why like that's so hard to like actually have deep connections with people. Like there's people who I may have had surface level interactions with back in school, like college, but after ODU, it's like we're really cool. Like we actually have like long talks and stuff like that. Like like Rome, for example, we knew each other and we were cool in ODU, but we didn't talk this much until like afterwards. And he was actually one of the reasons. Like he was one of the conversations I had with him was right before we started the podcast, and I was talking about different ideas, and he kind of like that conversation with him kind of inspired this. So it's just like you can either have like surface level interactions with people or deeper ones, and I had like a drive to continue to have deeper connections with people, and I feel like that's what really drove it. And I wouldn't say it was like one person telling me anything, because that would be an external motivator that I'm depending on someone else, as opposed to me saying this is something that I need to do or something that I would like to do, and it's not dependent on one person's presence in my life or not. So did you have a similar experience to where something triggered you or was a catalyst to your emotional intelligence?
I wouldn't say it was something. It was really more self-awareness, but it was basically kind of like what Des said. I just got sick and tired of being disappointed, so I had to strip myself down and look at myself from outside lens and then find out what was I missing, and to find out, okay, I'm missing the emotional intelligence part, and I have to understand why they're making these decisions on behalf of my part. So that's really what it was, just looking at myself from a different lens and just stripping myself down from everything, and then just realizing I didn't have the emotional intelligence, and then working on that.
Does your profession have anything to do with that? Like your desire to have more emotional intelligence? Or your increase of that skill?
I think it's made me better, but I don't think it's necessarily got me to realize that I needed it though. But I would say it's definitely made me better, made me become more empathetic and how other families are, their situations and everything like that. But I wouldn't say it made me direct correlation as to, oh, okay, now I got to work on my emotional intelligence. It was more just me realizing like, okay, I'm sick of the same routine. I got to change it up and do something else.
Your job was just like additional reps because you have to be able to relate with the individuals, the children that you're working with.
Exactly, yeah.
So I noticed also, excuse me, go ahead.
No, I was about to say I did start working on that after college though. I didn't start working on or really realize I needed to work on my emotional intelligence to like after college, like after undergrad college. But yeah.
So I was looking at your list, and actually Dez's list too. But you guys listed soft skills. You didn't have any hard skills. So are there any hard skills you think that are important for or valuable for someone to possess?
I'm not sure what you mean as far as hard skills and
Like-
soft skills.
Like cooking, for example, the one that I gave.
I always thought like that was more of a soft skill than a hard skill.
Cooking is.
I'm not
hard
sure.
skill.
I'm not sure.
Like,
That's what I'm
I
not
consider
sure.
the difference between
The
hard and
difference.
soft skills is like, are you actually doing something? Like a soft skill is like communication, listening, whereas a hard skill is like masonry, stonework, coding, things that you actually like produce a tangible object.
So my counter would be, well, purpose is a hard skill. Like, to be honest, like just because I don't
No,
say
it's difficult.
like just because I don't say, okay, like a degree or anything, like you said, any job that you have to be like an apprentice for or something of that nature, like purpose for me falls in that same category, because some people can find their purpose through, like my godbrother, for example, he's a practicing attorney. Like he's known since he was like 6 years old that he wanted to be an attorney. That was his purpose in life. Like he felt that's what he was put on this earth to do. So for me, like I didn't want to say mentorship or anything like that as but I mean, I guess mentorship could be considered a soft skill. Today's day and age, I would think a hard skill might be, I mean, I would say foreign language. Like I think we're getting to a point to where English is, and I think I saw, what's her name? Nikita?
Yeah.
I seen her comment under one of the posts we had on Instagram a few months back, and she was saying that I think we're talking about education, but she said that a second language should be mandatory in schools. And while I didn't necessarily agree when I first read it, the more I thought about it, she's like actually spot on, because I'll find myself using Spanish, inherently with my English when I'm talking to my son. Like, even though he doesn't understand it, I still say things in Spanish because it's just almost second nature to me. Like today it's cold as shit. We were in the Target parking lot, and I was like, hace frío. And he's just looking at me in my face with the most blank expression, like, what are you saying? Or I'll say, whenever he puts on his jacket, I was like, okay, chaqueta. And I just try and say it like repetitiously until he kind of like pieces everything together. But I never do it intentionally. Like, it's just almost second nature at this point. Like, although I can't speak it fluently, like I've taken, I went up to Spanish 3 in high school, and then I've taken advanced Spanish in undergrad. So like I can piece stuff together. Not as cleanly as I could before, but I would say foreign language could be a hard skill that is almost going to be a game changer in the near future, because even at ADP, like our Spanish speaking reps, like people that can speak English and Spanish, bilingual reps, like they're in demand. They want that.
I think I was actually looking, but I probably don't have enough time to find it. But I've read before, heard that people who speak more than one language, they actually generally are rank higher in intelligence. Like there's a correlation between
Right,
that.
it's hard.
Yeah,
Like
it's really difficult.
like I was jokingly thinking, I was like, man, this was the dumbest thing I think I've said in recent time. I was like, damn, do people who speak Chinese and Chinese and Japanese and German and all these other languages, like, man, do they like? To me, it's hard to see them. I might have said it up here before as well. I was like, it's hard for me to like be in their mind and see them think in their native language, because when I'm thinking of Spanish, I'm thinking English and I'm translating it into Spanish as I'm saying it.
Mhm.
So it's just crazy to me that like, man, these different you know, nationalities, like these different cultures, like they think and speak in their
different
native
languages.
language. Like that's just so crazy to me, because then at the same time, like they probably do the same thing, or they might not. Like they might actually think English and say it, but who knows, man? Like that's just so crazy to me, because for me, like I know you will learn the language a lot faster by learning to think in it.
Mhm.
But for me, like it's so hard. Like even though I say some of those things like repetitively without having to think, like there was a point in time where like I was always constantly making that correlation. Okay, it's cold, hace frío. It's cold, hace frío. It's cold, hace frío. All right, jacket, chaqueta, jacket, chaqueta. Like it was that thing like in Spanish where I don't know if you had to do it in high school, but you had to write 5 times each. Stupidest thing ever, but we had to Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. Our homework would be whenever we had new words, we had to write it 5 times each,
Mhm.
and we had to turn it in.
I thought you were gonna say That's So Raven assignment where they had the Spanish and they had to put like the sticky notes on everything in the house to learn the objects in Spanish.
That's actually not a bad idea though. Like, it's not a bad idea.
I saw when you were sharing your screen earlier that you had the Duolingo up and you had a notification. You been using it again lately?
I have not. I can't tell you how many notifications I get. You're talking about some, like they're trying to get me to learn stuff that I already know. So I think part of the reason why I don't have the desire is because I haven't gone in and personalized my setup to give me words that I don't know, or sentence structure that I don't already know.
Mhm.
Like a lot of that stuff is so elementary to where like I get bored doing it because I already know all of it. Even though like I might not be able to do it in like real time, like if you ask me something right now, like I'd have to ponder on it. But like when I get into the app, it's like, oh yeah, I can identify it and I can immediately know what it is. But like just thinking right now, like I wouldn't. I don't know. I haven't tested myself in a long time, but that's the main reason why I'm not using it right now. But I do want to. I think I might rededicate myself to learning German. I think because that's something I don't know at all. Like it would be hard to get boring with the elementary stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it's completely unrelated to the Romance languages.
Exactly. And then on top of that, I watched that John Cena stretching video,
Mhm.
and he says that he counts in Mandarin because it takes his mind off of it.
Mhm.
And I would count to 10 in Spanish, even though like I know like the back of my hand, like it takes my mind off of the reps, and it takes my mind off of, you know, the amount of time I'm stretching.
Because of
And I'm
conversion.
yeah, exactly. Like it takes my mind off of so much stuff when I'm actually doing the workout or the stretching routines, because I'm spending more time, like you said, making the conversion rather than, you know, all right, damn, my shoulder's hurting a little bit. All right, my chest hurting a little bit. Like, no, I'm solely focused on, you know, saying the next thing.
Yeah, I saw Josh. You were more consistent with Duolingo, but you kind of fell off recently. I was keeping an eye on like our comparison, see how many points he was racking up.
Yeah, I sometimes just forget a day, to be honest with you. That's usually why.
I didn't think that happened.
Say it again.
I said I didn't think that happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, after I did it a year straight, I wasn't really that motivated, and I knew like I was doing a whole bunch of stuff to the point that I wasn't probably going to get to it, and the streak was going to fall off anyway. So
Mhm.
I just kind of figured that. But to your actual question, I feel like the soft skills lead into the hard skills, how you guys were talking about. So that's really well, other than me not really knowing any hard skills. Like if you, like I said, time management skills. If you have good time management skills, then you can learn how to cook, or you can learn how to learn a foreign language or
Right.
something like that. So that's why. What? Say
But
that again?
I think a better way for me to explain it, like after Des was just speaking about the foreign languages and all that, I was thinking also like, I forgot what part triggered this, but I think a better, his first retort to like why I said like the differentiation between the hard skills and soft skills. I think the difference is a hard skill is something you can be. So if you look at the things we just said, like you cannot be a professional critical thinker. You can be in a profession where you have to critically think, but there's not an actual job where you can think critically. Same thing with emotional intelligence. You can't be a professional emotional intelligencer. That's not a thing. Even though you could say, okay, a therapist, or
You could take the time out to be a professional cook, though.
you can't. That's a hard skill. That's my point. You can't
You're,
be a,
you're,
you
you're
can't,
mute. You're mute,
you
Des.
can't be a professional time manager.
What I was going to say was, okay, so you want the title to it because technically speaking, a professional critical thinker is a philosopher, and a professional time manager is a manager itself.
I thought about the
Like-
manager when you threw me for a spin when you said the philosopher. I like the
Well, think about it. Like I don't know if you ever took philosophy, but like, man, philosophy is
One class.
nothing but critical thinking.
Mhm.
Like I remember I took this 200 level course, and it was the hardest course I have ever taken in college, because I would be in the class and I would be engaged. I'd be proactive. I'd ask all the questions that I know I'm going to need answers to later. And I would turn in the work and I would still get a C. Like it was to the point where I was just so frustrated. I was like, man, like I'm asking you all these questions. And really he was just like, the level that you're thinking on right now is not where you need to be. Like you're thinking everything. You're trying to apply logic right now. Like there's certain things in philosophy where you just have to take it for what it is. And like the more you question it, the more, like really with philosophy, the more you question it, the more lost you're going to be. That's what I took from philosophy. So when I took my 300, 400 level courses, I stopped questioning the legitimacy of it. And I just questioned what it is I'm learning and how applicable it is or how non-applicable it is. And I had A's the rest of it. Like philosophy literally is nothing but critical thinking with or without application.
Yeah, because there's different ideologies within philosophy that they have like a fundamental basis, and so you have to assume that that much is true in order for you to think along those lines.
Exactly. Like you saying that perfectly reminds me of Descartes and the evil genius theory, man. Like I am not gonna lie, I got a D on that test because I just could not understand. Like it was the first thing we unpacked in this philosophy class, and I failed it. Like it was just something I could not understand. But I learned to love the theory itself because it made me realize like there's literally levels to critical thinking. Like we might look at some of these people that follow Trump and be like, damn, they don't possess, like just from a biased mind frame, like they don't possess the ability to critically think. But like what we might look at as blind faith might not be blind faith to them. Like they might actually have rational reasoning that we might deem irrational to why they follow Trump. And it's like, instead of me question it, and I'll tell you this, wrapping everything up, the moment I stopped questioning everything in life and I learned to take it for what it is, I found peace. I no longer had those headaches when I was constantly trying to understand everyone's intentions, their actions, why, this, that, and third. So once I just started taking everything for what it is, and I realized that I had the ability to oftentimes affect 99.9% of my outcomes, like I just stopped questioning stuff. Of course, every human being, they have that natural inquisition that they just have, built upon as from, adolescence. But like for me, the moment I stripped myself for trying to understand everybody and everything that everybody did, like life just became so much more peaceful. Like my life now is a constant walk in the botanical garden. I'm always smelling the roses. And saying that, like when I first read the question, because I couldn't find it until like you posted it in the group chat, around 5. One of the things that I wrote was, self-affirmation / self-determination / self-motivation. I think like, and you even started talking about a little bit to where, you had to find that motivation, or you had to be self-motivated absent of another person being there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's so key. It's so critical. Like that's what separates the leaders from the followers. That ability to be motivated without needing someone to pick you up. Like the ability to pick yourself up is just a truly underrated skill itself. And like every time I have a one-on-one with my manager, she's like, "Yo, you didn't have a good month. She was like, you didn't have a good month last month, and I knew you didn't because you told me. And I looked at your next month's stats, and I expected what I saw. Like she already knows, like if I have a bad month, she doesn't have to say nothing because my next month is going to be 3 times better than what last month was." She always says that. She's like, our meetings we have like 40-minute section off to have this meeting, but it's never gone longer than 20 minutes because all she needs to hear is that one thing from me. It was like, yeah, I didn't have a good month. Once I come out and say, yeah, I didn't have a good month because of X, Y, and Z, she's like, all right, that's all I need to hear. I expect to see better next month. And she doesn't even say that. She says it without saying it. She's like, she'll say something like, yeah, that's not the Desmond that I know.
You read between the lines.
Exactly. Like she'll always say, she was like, yeah, I've been waiting to see that Desmond that I know. Because when I first got into ADP, like I was top 3 out of 60 people. So it's like, you know, for me to have a bad month, it has to be something external. And I was straight up tell her, like, yeah, there's certain days I just don't feel like getting out of bed. But I know how to now manage that by, you know, making sure I'm not going to sleep mad. Taking that time out to watch Star Wars or play a couple games or, you know, read a little bit of the book, wake up at 4 o'clock and actually wake up at 3 a.m. and catch a London session to build my own self up rather than, you know, needing to watch something on YouTube. I mean, you know, maybe that's how people self-motivate themselves, like watching other people on YouTube do their thing or Instagram. But for me, like I know how to pick myself up now without, you know, needing any external motivation. Because I was one of those people throughout undergrad, man, to where if I had a 9 a.m., my attendance was maybe like 60%. And I always be trying to watch some Eric Thomas video on the way to ODU, trying to find that external motivation to, you know, finish the semester strong, man. And it just never worked. And I was like, once I realized that I had to consistently challenge myself, like that's when that self-motivation factor, like just everything started to make sense as far as how I get to point A to point B without, you know, having a taxi.
Don't you mean Uber?
I'm sorry.
Nobody rides taxis anymore. Josh, how did you develop your self-motivation? Because I know that you're a pretty driven person as well, and you don't rely on other people for that.
I actually just try to imagine myself or what I want to be, really, like the person I want to be, I guess you could say. That's really how I imagine myself, because like you said, I try not to rely on other people's motivation, and I try to pick apart the time where I have to ask myself, wait, am I actually why am I doing this? Am I doing this for someone else, or am I doing this for myself? So yeah, it's really about that. I would really say, like, just finding the motivation and looking at who I want to be and then trying to get to that person. I was gonna ask, can someone be born with hard skills or soft skills?
So I went to look at the exact definition because I guess my definition, I had 2 tries. So this is strike 3. I'm gonna try one more time. And this is the actual definition that I'll have to look up to differentiate. Hard skills are teachable and measurable abilities such as writing, reading, math, or the ability to use computer programs. By contrast, soft skills are traits that make a person like a good employee, such as etiquette, communication, and listening, or getting along with people. So that's the difference. It's not necessarily what I was saying with having a career in those fields.
But with any of the skills that we mentioned here, like, can they be born? Can someone be born with them?
Born with a hard skill?
Yeah, any of the skills that we
Well,
mentioned.
it just says hard skills are teachable and measurable. Like, I don't think anybody could be born and just know how to program computers. Desmond? You about to try it.
Nah, I don't think anybody can be, I mean, I don't want to say anybody can't be born with the hard skills, but it's hard to tell me otherwise.
What's the examples they name? You said
Like writing, reading, math, or the ability to program.
So
Like you have to
those are the
fundamentally
only hard skills, or
no,
they're just using those?
no. These are examples, but there's a fundamental understanding for each one of those things as basics. Like for you to understand calculus, you have to understand basic addition, subtraction, those kind of things. So you have to, the knowledge builds upon that. So it's impossible for you to have mastery over something and just be exceptionally proficient if you don't have the fundamentals understood. So that implies like a hierarchy of learning.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
No, I was just going over what you said.
Ah, got you.
I got you. Anything else you have?
No, I think that was all for me.
You have anything, Des?
Nah, I'm good, boss.
You have an album of the week?
I actually have a playlist of the week. I'm gonna make it public, but I actually built this playlist like a little bit after my son was born, and it's Eli E. Kyrie. His middle name is Elijah, and Y in Spanish is E, but it's Eli and Kyrie. There's a bunch of songs that he really liked as a kid, and as an infant, and there was a bunch of songs that I really was feeling at the time. So you can get anything from Bruno Mars to Miguel to Nas to Jay-Z. So I'll make it public in a little bit, but it's if you have Apple Music, it's gonna be under my profile. I think my Apple Music name is Dope As This. I don't know.
I think so.
Check real quick. I think I have it right here. It's not gonna load, but yeah, I'll make it public before. Actually, I'll make it public right now. So by the time this airs, you guys will already. It's 169 songs, 10 hours. It's the equivalent of, my old playlist that I used to put up here, that you could cook, clean, relax to. It has some everything. Jeez, I didn't even know it had all of these. Lucas has even added some stuff to it unintentionally. I don't even. Yep. Okay. Eli E. Kyrie. Eli and Kyrie. K-H-I-R-Y. It's not spelled like Kyrie Irving is. It's spelled how my parents, I guess, intended for it to be spelled.
All right. If you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. We're going to see you guys next week. Peace.
But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua vs. Movies, Joshua vs. Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.